Hey folks, welcome to InTheMoneyStocks.com's live trading action video. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here. Today's date is Wednesday, August 17th, 2017. Well, folks, we got the Fed minutes today. Earlier in the day, the markets continued to see some selling pressure from yesterday. Fed minutes came out, markets did pop back up. Fed overly dovish continues to be. There's really should be no worry for the markets. I mean, maybe December, a quarter basis point, but in all reality, what's that really going to change? Nothing. So I think that's the key, and the markets are enjoying that. Now, listen, we're not up much by any stretch. Off the lows, we're up decently, but if you look at the spiders today, we're up 30 cents. 30 cents. S&P's up less than 3 points, so it's a very minimal gain on the markets today across the board, even in spite of the very dovish Fed minutes that did come out. Couple things I want to go over. Number one, markets today on the initial drop came into some key levels here. If you take a look, you have a gap window, little pivot low right there. So again, take a look. That exact low from this big gap, we tagged that, and that's the low pivot of the day. All right. Now, again, it's going to be interesting to see where the markets close. We're going to watch for a close below 218 on the spiders or back above. Right now, that seems to be a little bit of a pivot point. If you look at yesterday's close, we closed at 217.99, 1 penny below, which led to selling earlier in the day. Now they've recaptured that, pushed the markets up, and we are going to follow and see if this market can recapture on a closing basis that level. A couple things to note here. I want to go over oil. Oil today initially was trading lower ahead of inventories and then popped up on oil inventories. We are trading nicely higher. Not a huge gain today, but the biggest thing that I'm noticing on the chart is the pierce to the moving averages, and then you have also this little pivot point right here. Let me just show you this right now. See this little pivot low where we had a big bounce off of it? Put that in there. That's a little pivot point, and then you also have this level right here, this little pivot point, which is what we're touching right now. So there is a lot of resistance. There's also a Fibonacci retrace, 50% retrace level right in this area. So again, I do expect oil to start to have some trouble in this range and start to turn to the downside. We will keep an eye on it very much so. Couple stocks in play today. NVDA rolling over sharply today. I believe that this is in the process of putting in a major top. I believe the retrace of this will take us back below $50. You might say that's a huge move, and it is. But if you look at the stock, just from February of this year down here, folks, the stock's up 150%. So just a 50% fib level retrace would only take you down into here. All right, right into this range, and that's my guess of where we're heading. Now, listen, it's not going to happen overnight by any stretch, but I bet if you put in this top, which I think you're putting in, you will see the semis start to get weak over the next month, 2 months, and I believe that NVIDIA will come back into that level, the $50 pierce level. All right, one thing that's giving me that heads up is if you look at the SMH today, SMH is off of its lows, but it's still negative. But what I'm looking at on the SMH is the weekly chart, and if the weekly chart just goes a little bit lower by Friday, you're going to put in a topping tail with a time count. Now, time counts are cycle-driven things, and you have to really understand the PPT methodology to fully understand them. But bottom line is, when you get a time count which is topped out with a topping tail, it's probably literally a 90% success rate trade to the downside. Very rarely does that pattern set up with the cycle factor fail. So just a heads up on that. I think that's something definitely we want to pay attention to into Friday's close. Now, this is the weekly chart, remember, so it has to be on a Friday close at the end of the week. Do we have a topping tail here? Okay. A couple other things to note here. Financials today, slightly kind of around the flat line, not doing a whole lot. JP Morgan is moving a little bit higher. I don't really have much going on here on JPM other than the fact that this line did break, so you are in breakout mode. So notice again, pivot high to pivot high to pivot high, and you are above that line. So that's bullish for JPM in the short term, which also tells me that the likely scenario we could be seeing is that interest rates are going to be rising in the short term. Now, again, we're not talking about the Fed acting, but remember, the Fed can do nothing, and interest rates can still, they trade every day. The 10-year yield trades every day. So they can still inch up, which would be a positive for financials, even if the Federal Reserve does not act. So just something to keep in mind there. Okay. Also, Apple, guys, I gave the exact shorting level on Apple here. Already in the money very nicely on this trade in the research center. And again, you can clearly see here, look at the extension move here, and then right to gap fill. Perfect little setup right there. Pierced it yesterday on that Warren Buffett increasing his stake news, and then reversed. And even though it's rallied back on Apple today off of the lows, still negative on the day. And again, by no means is it showing strength today. I mean, it's basically lagging the S&P just a little bit, which is up 3.5 points now. NASDAQ is fractionally negative, less than a point to the downside. All right, so let me just take a look here at Twitter today. Twitter's still down on the day. Twitter should have topped out a little bit here too. You can see little pivot top was pierced, and now you're starting to come back in. I think Twitter pulls back to these moving averages. See the necktie forming right here. Necktie, by the way, is a technical term for two moving averages. Two moving averages kind of just joining together here, and it looks like that's what's going to be happening. So that'll be a pullback level, potential buy level on Twitter, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, so that's about it here. Just interesting to keep an eye on the S&P 500. Let me just go back to the intraday. It looks like we're pushing up just a little bit here into the closing bell with about 20 minutes to go or so. Markets are trading just around the highs of the day, just around that 200 moving average. Volume today remains light, even with the Fed minutes. You can see the two candles where the Fed minutes came out, big candles. Even with that, only 60 million today. We'll do probably about 70 million on the trading day. All right, guys, take care. Come join us at InTheMoneyStocks.com. Take the 7-day free